welcome back. Welcome back. Glad to have everybody here with us. All right, everyone, welcome back. Glad to have everyone here. Just turning up the brightness on my computer. Okay, great. So today, just wanted to make sure you all can hear me well. Okay, great. All right, great. Just plugged up the microphone. Okay, so today is actually sentence correction, right? Which is a topic that is on the GMAT where, if done correctly, it's more mathematic than what people may think, right? Sentence correction is a lot different than reading comprehension and critical reasoning. But what sentence correction does is it's possible that it could be a time saver or a time trap. So really, when it comes to sentence correction, you want to get sentence correction to a point where it's like one of your strengths on the. I've seen that people who have, I've seen people who have not had English as their first language do very well on sentence correction, because there's a part of sentence correction that most native English speakers are going to rely on their ear, which isn't terrible, but isn't the way to methodically go through sentence correction. And so I think sentence correction is really like an area where if you dedicate the time and energy and effort, you can really see some dividends being paid back to you in the form of extra time for reading comprehension and critical reasoning, right? So you want to make sure you spend the right amount of time on these types of questions, all right? So let's dig in. Okay, so time is narrowing down. Again, disregard the date. I'm trying to get that changed, but don't worry about the dates. But lesson 1 down, 2, we had our drop in. Time is just flying by, right? We're here at sentence correction. We have lesson 8 in a drop-in session this weekend. And then live practice is over. Like that is tough to see, right? So the class is zooming by. So yeah, I will miss, I will miss everyone. Yes, we will. We will miss everyone here. And again, the relationship doesn't have to stop there. You do have the help at magoosh.com where you can always reach me. And you can use that email to reach out to me. All right, here are our goals today. We're going to explore how GMAT sentence correction, how to approach GMAT sentence correction questions. We're going to learn strategies for identifying errors in sentences, and we're going to review major grammatical concepts. All right, sentence correction strategy. All right, here's an example problem. From time to time, I'm going to drop my camera so that you can see the question in the best way. Yes, you will have access to the online practice test. Even if you're not able to attend the class, it's the Magoosh practice test. All right, not a problem. So this is an example of a sentence correction problem. So in this type of problem, you're going to have a quick breakdown. So it's like you have sentence correction. So you have like the writing, you have your answer choice, and then you have some like underlined part. This is what you're looking to solve. Okay. This is what we're looking to solve. All right. Sentence correction is different from reading comprehension and CR. Like math, based largely on rules. Eliminate 4 wrong answers, not predict 1 right answer. Okay, this is key. So when it comes to sentence correction questions, I think this is like the key part. Does anyone have a view on why do I think it's key to know you cannot predict 1 right answer? Anyone have a view on that? It's easy to be trapped, right? It's easy to be trapped, but it's easy to be trapped. And in addition to that, there could be multiple right answers in the sense that there's many different ways you can write a sentence, right? So let's try this sentence right here. The cat walked to the store. Okay. What do you think about this sentence right here? Grammatically correct? Incorrect? Missing something? Correct. Okay. What about this sentence right here? On a hot what do you all think about this sentence right here? On a hot sunny day, the cat walked to the store. Correct? All right. What about this sentence right here? What about this one? James laughed as he saw the cat walk to the store. All right. So these are just 3 different ways of conveying the information, and also like just the different ways a convey the different ways that you can see a sentence being written. And so there is a truth that there's traps to sentence correction, but also there's typically no one right way to write a sentence. But there's no one way to write a sentence, but there's multiple ways for a sentence to be grammatically incorrect. And that is what we're trying to find on the GMAT, grammatically incorrect sentences, and eliminate them, right? So if a sentence is grammatically incorrect, we're going to eliminate those answer choices and then select the answer that is not grammatically incorrect or is the best answer choice of the remaining answer choices we have. All right, so sentence correction process. I want you all to pay close attention to this. Scan answer choices for splits. Read sentences for context and clues. Choose easiest splits and do process of elimination. Repeat 3 times with additional splits until only one answer remains. My suggestion is taking a moment and writing down this process. I'll give you all about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes to write this down. When you're done, just add this to your note. Make sure you add this to your notes, drop a RTG, meaning that I can move on to the next slide. But this process is key. All right. We got people writing. Okay, hold on. So learn, you should find one thing wrong in the underlying sentences, then move on to the answer choices. So yes and no. Yes and no. I see what you're saying. So that's actually a split, right? So a split is we're going to go over that right now. So a split is where you see a part of the sentence that is incorrect, and you use that to gauge the other answer choices. So I'll give you all an example as we work through it. But yes, great that you brought up splits. If I don't answer what splits are by the time we get to the question section, please re-ask me that question so I can be sure to give you that information. All right, so scan answer choices for splits, read sentence for context clues, choose easiest splits, and do process of elimination. Repeat step three with additional splits until only one answer remains. Sounds right is a dangerous game, right? You don't want to play that on sentence correction. The test makers writes wrong answers that sound right and right answers that sound wrong, right? Only plug in and read answer choices as a last resort, right? Identify the splits, i.e. places in the sentence that differ between answer choices to focus your energy. So just to go back to that question about what a split is, does this answer your question? Identify splits, places in the sentence that differ between answer choices. Does that answer your question on what a split is? I wouldn't say departure of the norm. You may be making it too complex. A split is where you see a part of the original passage that is different than the answer choices. I wouldn't say departure from the norm. Departure from the norm is not the way you want to think about it. You want to think about it as a split is where the answer choices align, and you see that there's a difference between what's written in the answer choices versus what's provided in the prompt. And we'll go through that. But that may be too cumbersome to go through that. Only eliminate if you're 100% sure, then never look at that answer again. Okay, so this is an example of a split. So let's talk about this one. We're going to spend some time here just so that it's clear that we understand what a split is. Okay, so we're going to read. So we have, once the police made public the details of the hacking of the university computer, the chemistry professor, announcing that since some of the students had clearly cheated on the exam, all would have to retake it. All right, so we have answer choices right here of A, B, C, D, and E. As you may know, A is always the same sentence underline part from the prompt. Okay, so now a split. Let's see if we can identify the split. One split that we're seeing is this right here, right? The split between announcing and announced. Just to check in, does this example help you identify and understand what a split is? A split is when answer choice A, when the following answer choices have a different structure, words, uses that are different from the other answer choices. So the split here is between announcing, which we have 3 answer choices that have announcing, and then we have 2 answer choices that has announced. Is that clear? Don't try to solve the problem right now. Solving the problem right now is not the process. Okay, so is this clear? Okay, great. Got it. So let's just start at the process, okay? So if we were scanning the answer choices, where will we stop if the first step in our process is scan answer choices for splits? What is this first split? I want everyone to type in the chat. What is the first split we're going to spend time on reviewing? Announcing versus announced, right? So the split, the way you want to think about it is announcing versus announced. Okay, announcing versus announced. That is the split that we're focusing on right here. And so with that being said, that's where we would stop, right? We would stop there. Again, we're not plugging these into the answer choice. We're just stopping right there and we're saying, okay, why would we use announcing versus announce? That kind of changes the whole subject, right? When you're something being announced versus announcing is like 2 different relationships, right? That's a view right there. Yes. Yes, that is the view, right? When you're announcing something is happening right now, when you've announced something, ED, that happened in the past. Okay, so that is a clear split right there. Let's see if we see another split in the exam, in the question, right? Let's see if we see another split. So announcing, we got that split. That since some of the students had clearly cheated on the exam, some of the students had clearly cheated on the exam, and okay, so we got this and here, right? So we have these ands, right? This is another difference here, right? We have this and, right? And changes that. So we have none of the other ones have and. Then we have had clearly cheated on the exam, comma, had clearly cheated. Some of the students had clearly cheated on the exam, and having, right? So now we got having, right? We have a having split. So it seems like we have a split of having versus had. So we have had, and had versus having. Okay, again, that's another split, right? That's another split. So we've identified 2 splits on each answer choice. And so the key to sentence correction is not working with the first split that is shared with you, right? Announcing versus announced is the first split that we see. But that may not necessarily be the split that we're comfortable working with, okay? That may not be the split that we're comfortable working with. You all may have more comfort using the having versus had split, right? So with sentence correction, the goal is to find the splits that work for you and use those splits to answer the questions. Is my perspective, is this process connecting with your perspective on just sentence correction, understanding what a split is, understanding process of elimination, and repeating the idea of not necessarily plugging the sentence into the underlying part into the sentence, but understanding like the underlying part and like the idea of the splits. Okay, need a few more people in this chat to chime in. Let me know. Just want to make sure we're all following along. Okay, Got it. All right. So let's clear this up, clear all drawings, move forward. All right. Think of that. I think that A is blank compared to the other answer choices. More likely to be correct, less likely to be correct, just as likely to be correct. Answer in the poll. All right, we got those answers in. And it seems we have a 50-50 split, right, between B and C. All right, 50-50 split. All right, A is a valid answer choice. A lot of people overlook A because they're like, hey, if A is correct, why would A, why would they put this question there? But it's a valid answer choice. A is correct as often as any other answer choice, right? The sentence can be right as is. I think someone mentioned that in the chat that sometimes there's no split in the answer choice, because there's no split in the underlying part because there may not be anything wrong with it. So my response to that is yes, but remember the other answer choices, if A is correct, then the other answer choices will be clearly wrong. So there is a split. There's just not anything wrong with A. Right? So let me just, before you say don't get stuck on A, let me just clarify it. You may read an underlined portion of the sentence and it's correct. However, just because you read the underlined portion of the sentence and it's correct doesn't mean that you don't look at the rest of the answer choices. You still look at the other answer choices because what may look correct for a specific context that you think is on a second read through may be incorrect. So you still want to double check your answers. All right. But great energy, great insight here. Yeah, you always, with sentence correction, you always want to eliminate. The game is elimination of sentence correction, not correct answers. So if you read something and you think it's correct, then you're probably doing it wrong. No answer should, unless you've gotten multiple answers incorrect, and so you've gotten a question that's at the lower end of your skill ability, then maybe that'll like jump off the screen to you and say, okay, it's correct. But if you're answering questions and you're getting them right and you're moving through the test at a nice speed, more than likely you're going to get questions that if you read A, and even if it's correct, when you typically select A, you're not selecting A because you read it and you know it's correct. You're typically selecting A because you were able to eliminate the other answer choices. All right. Any questions? Give you all a moment for any questions here. All right, I don't see any questions popping up. All right, we'll move forward. Sentence correction grammar. I think I got a question. are doing steps 2, 3, and 4 in that problem explained? I believe you may be asking, well, okay. Well, we are doing those question steps. So we are going to do those, and I'm going to take you through those answer choices right now. Yep. All right. So idioms and dictation are on the exam, but the suggestion I would make in that space is that for idioms and dictation, right, I would suggest that you spend more time just reading popular American journals, such as like American Science and Wall Street Journal, New York Times. I would read some of those because those give you like a greater feel for American writing, popular American writing or proper American writing. So that's how I would kind of learn idioms and like doing like note cards and flashcards as well. So I would say the big ones are parallelism, modifiers, verb agreement. Tense is like, I put like a star here, like a little asterisk there, because often is lower priority. Okay. So it's not that it's a lower priority in the sense that it's still important, but it's typically like an add-on to parallelism, modifiers, and agreements. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I mean by a lower priority? Not that it's not important, but typically you will see tense paired with like a modifier issue. It's usually not the only issue. Okay, got it. All right. Okay, so sentence correction, right? They need to actually be sentences and not fragments, right? So sentence structure is key. Has to be a sentence, right? Independent clauses, right? What makes an independent clause? Can you share in the chat? What is an independent clause? What parts do an independent clause need? Can stand alone. So it needs a subject and verb. Okay. So it needs an intended subject, right? Because this example is a sentence, right? So if you text run, right? Is this a sentence? So not a sentence in the sense of a subject and a verb, but it is a command that has an intended meaning, right? So it's one of those special cases where, so it's run, it is just saying run, but it's really more like person. So this is really what you're trying to convey. So you're trying to convey to the person that's in front of you, run. So it's really a subject and a verb there. So if someone walked up to you and said, run, yeah, like demanding you run, right? So without saying you, right? In this space, right? If I walk up to you and say, run, then you know the intended audience is you. And so with that being said, this is an independent clause, right? It is independent because you clearly know it's a person is being directed at someone. It's someone, yeah, you run, right? You don't have to say to you, right? Because it's directly intended. So you need to have direct intentionality that you can clearly describe. And that's a part of sentence comprehension. I mean, sentence correction, where you must be able to clearly articulate who the sentence is being directed at. Have you all seen this before, right? You ever see a sentence and they have they, them, us, or we in mixed combination, right? You ever see this? Like they, them, us, or we in mixed combination, right? So like they'll say, you know, something like the Giants, they have great defense, but we are better, right? You know clearly that they is meaning the Giants and we is meaning my team, you know, or, you know, whatever, the Green Bay Packers. But if you were to say something like the Giants and the Sixers, and the Giants and the Sixers, well, the Sixers and the Knicks have great defense, but the Chicago Bulls has better offense. We're better than them, right? Again, you clearly know who you're talking about. But if if we is different than the Giants or the next team, like if it's not clearly grouped, then you're gonna have issues. Yeah, you're gonna have issues if the groupings are different, and we'll show you experiences like that in this case throughout the sentence correction. Subject, verb, complete thought. All right. Make note, watch out for nouns disappearing between answer choices, right? Watch out for changes in the end of the word, right? Changing a word from ing to ed is like two different words, right? Announcing and announce are not the same, right? They're not the same word. So that's the key. So let's check this one out. So when you have a problem like this, right? And we spend some time, we spend a substantial amount of time in this answer choice, right? Because I want you all to understand like how this answer choice is, all right? So we kind of deconstructed it already and we saw some of the changes, right? So what's the change that we're seeing here where the noun and the verbs are changing? We identified it, right? Announcing, announcing, announced, announced, announcing. That's a red flag, right? That's a red flag. So let's read the passage, right? Once the police made public the details of the hacking of the university computer, the chemistry professor announcing that since some of the students had clearly cheated on the exam, all would have to retake it. Okay. Now, think about that. Would the chemistry professor be announcing or would announced? Let's think about that. If you were thinking about a chemistry professor, it'll be announced, right? Because announcing would mean that it's like happening right now and they're announcing it. But you have ideas like once. So once the police made this arrest, so this already happened, right? So announcing is incorrect. We're going to drop the announcings. This leaves us to C and D. Again, no need to answer just now, just a clever way of just creating the idea of the split. Want to check in. Is the idea of the split now, really cementing and, really resonating with you all? So we use the split of announcing versus announce to eliminate answer choices A, B, and E, okay? A, B, and E are off the table now. We don't have to read those again. Never read those again. They're done. Okay, great. So let's clear that off. Okay, adjectives, adverbs, or descriptive phrases, not necessary to grammar of a sentence, right? These are modifiers. Let's cut the fluff. That's the key thing that we need to think about here, cutting the fluff. Modifiers make sentences more complicated. Get rid of them. Practice reading over a modifier. Useful for sentence structure questions whenever you're lost, okay? So when you get questions regarding, when you have questions that have like modifiers, right? So an example of a modifier is this. An example of a modifier would be this. All right, so I just wrote an example of a modifier. The book's dusty and wrinkled cover was ripped, okay? So, right, dusty and wrinkled, right, are adjectives, and they give description, right? But what's the sentence here? What is the sentence here? And I noticed that I didn't put the apostrophe there. Let me just put it right there. All right. Okay. What is it? The book's cover was ripped, right? Dusty and wrinkled do what? They provide what? Describe the book's cover, right? The book's cover. They give you insight into the book's cover. They're like, okay, so maybe not the brand new cover, right? Dusty and wrinkled help paint the picture like, okay, it's an older book. That's why it's a ripped cover, right? Versus if I would say something like this. The book's brand new cover was ripped, right? What am I hinting at now by saying the book's brand new cover was ripped? What am I hinting at? The cover, but yeah, it's done intentionally, right? Or something, it's different, right? Same, it could be the same book. I could say the book's dusty and wrinkled cover was ripped. That may not give you a lot of pause because you may say, hey, the book is dusty and wrinkled, right? It's dusty and wrinkled, so maybe it's old and tattered. But when I say the book's brand new cover was ripped, you're like, wow, like who ripped the cover of the book? And that's what modifiers do. They're not essential to the sentence. And what the GMAT likes to do is put modifiers between it. Yes, it emphasizes on usual nature. Yes. What the GMAT likes to do is put modifiers between you, the subject, between the subject and the verb, right? And by doing this, it makes it challenging to find out if the verb and the tense of if the subject and the tense of the verb agree, right? So it could say something like, the Giants' brand new uniform, you know, blah, 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 were, right? It wouldn't be Giants were, it'd be Giants was, right? Because of like the subject and the verb connection, right? So like you just want to find ways to connect the two. All right, cut the fluff. Adjectives and adverbs, right? So these are like your tips. I'll tell you to give you a second to copy these down. These are key, right? These are key. These are clues that you should look for when you're doing sentence correction. Give you a moment to copy them down. All right. These are key, right? These are like essential to the process. Look for these each and every time, right? Clues, ing, ed. When those are switching around, there's something changing in the sentence. When you see prepositions in the phrase, right? Are you all familiar with the prepositions? Have you watched the preposition video yet? Or what is a preposition? Okay, a preposition in a very simple way, right? Someone said this. A preposition is anything a mouse could do within house. So a mouse could sit on top of the house. The mouse could be underneath the house. The mouse could be in the house. The mouse could be outside of the house. The mouse could be around the house. The mouse could paint the house, paint on the house, right? Like, so it's anything a mouse can do is what the barometer of like what a preposition is. I thought that was a funny way. It's a modifier, but it gives specific like characteristics, I would say, or like positioning of a noun. All right. What versus that? That's another key one. What versus that, right? What is a non-essential modifier. Okay. And that is an essential modifier, right? So sorry, not what, which is a non-essential modifier, right? We gotta adjust that. So you want to think about it in the sense of when you see the word which, it should be set off by commas, whereas that doesn't need commas. So let me write a quick example here. So an example could be, all right. So this is an example of a which modifier. The Duke basketball team, which wear blue uniforms, won the game, right? So the modifier here is the which idea, right? So we're saying they wear blue uniforms. That has nothing to do with them winning the game. However, if you were to say, this, the Duke basketball team that won the championship in 1992 is the best team ever. Do you see how you have to have won the championship in 1992? Because if you don't put one that won the championship in 1992, then there are many Duke basketball teams. There are hundreds, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure Duke, well, probably not hundreds, but 50 or so. There are 50 years of Duke basketball. So if you don't put the words won the championship in 1992 in this sentence, then you could be confused on which basketball team it is. Dependent, yes. I mean, well, I would say, yes, you could say it is a dependent clause, but I would make it even simple, just the separation between which being essential and that being not essential. Because what you really want to check out is that if you see two commas being offset and what's inside is essential for you understanding the sentence, then you know it's incorrect. So I'm not really here to teach necessarily the grammar part. I'm more so trying to teach test strategy. And if you see two commas and you see the information inside the two commas is important to understanding the context of the sentence, then I would suggest that you select that and not which, right? And we'll talk more about that along today. So commas also offset, right? And so let's check this one out for us to get together, right? We've already eliminated, we eliminated A, C, and E. Okay, so we have professor announced that some of the students, comma, having clearly cheated on the exam, comma, all would have to retake it. Or professor announced that since some of the students had clearly cheated on the exam, all would have to retake it. Do you all believe that this comma having clearly cheated on the exam is important or not? Is that important to have in this sentence? Crucial, right? You need to know the students cheated, right? If the students cheated on the exam, we got to retest the students. So it's crucial. So that we can eliminate, our answer is D. And this is how we use the split. Now, were you all clear on the split between C and D? Was that clear? What was the split there? The split was between what two parts? Having, right? Comma having versus had. Well, yes. And also the idea that comma having is the words that follow after comma having, are they important or not, right? So you see how a split can also be like context. So a split could literally just be like words and just what word is right and which word is wrong to place there. But then also a split could be context, right? Inputting that the students cheated is a context part, right? And it's important to understanding the sentence. Okay, great work. All right, so adjectives, adverbs, and descriptive phrases, not necessary to grammar of the sentence, but must be properly set off by commas. Usually no comma if necessary for meaning. So here's this point about necessary for meaning. Commas if unnecessary for meaning. Must be properly placed. Usually right next to what they describe, right? Consider meaning, right? Consider meaning. Sometimes multiple answer choices work grammatically, but the grammar is in service of meaning, right? So this goes back to the point about A, right? You might look at A and there could be nothing wrong with A. You still should read the rest of the sentences, the rest of the answer choices, because by reading the other answer choices, you could find out if this meaning of the sentence is connecting, right? You could write an incorrect sentence correctly, but the meaning could be lacking. All right. I'm gonna give you all a moment to check out this answer and we'll be right back. I'll give you all about a minute and a half. Ready, set, go. Okay. Okay, we're back and I found a better location. All right. So we have a very interesting sentence and we'll read it. Well, not necessarily read it. I think the more important parts is checking out the context, right? So let's see what we have, right? So studies show that teachers unconsciously assume that students who regularly perform poorly on assessments have below average abilities. And in neglecting to provide the academic challenges that would catalyze their intellectual potential, the students often accept this damaging diagnosis and the life limits it implies. Okay. So let's check this one out. Let's look at A. In neglecting, right? So it's modifying, right? So in neglecting to provide, so it's saying studies show that teachers, comma, and in neglecting, right? Whatever this phrase is in neglecting, and you see the comma there, sorry, this in neglecting, and you see the comma here, it should modify the next word after it. Are the students neglecting or the teachers are neglecting? Who's neglecting? It's not clear, right? But from the context that we're reading, the people that are neglecting the students are not the other students, it's the teachers, right? The teachers are neglecting to upgrade the classes for the students. So this in neglecting is incorrect. So we're going to remove A, we're going to remove D, and we're going to remove E. Now, do you all see like that was our split? Do you all see what our split was? What was our split here? Can you type in the chat the split that we had here? In neglecting and what? Versus when, exactly, right? So, so now we have that off the table. Now we have, all right, again, we don't really probably have to invest too much into the prompt here. And when they neglect providing the academic challenges that would be catalyzing their intellectual potential, when teachers neglect to provide the academic challenges that would catalyze their students' intellectual potential, which one of these just sound clearer? Right? So which one sounds clear? Who's they? Exactly. But more importantly, do you notice that we're using they and then we use they and their? Are they and their describing the same thing? Are they the same? No, right? Because the they is referring to teachers, right? Teachers. And then their intellectual potential. Are we talking about the teacher's intellectual potential or the students? We're talking about the students, right? We're talking about the students. So we're talking about the students. Okay, so if that's students, then this is wrong as well. Answer choice C is correct. But were you all, how was this experience for this problem? Were you able to identify the splits? Are there any questions from this problem? Okay, guess not. But this was an example of just how you identify the splits. Well, let's just go back to what we read, right? So let's think about it. Studies show that teachers unconsciously assume that students who regularly perform poorly on assessments have below average abilities. So now, when you see that comma before the students, everything before that comma up to that and should modify the students. Are the students neglecting their intellectual potential, or is the teachers neglecting the students' intellectual potential? Who's being neglected and who's neglecting? All right. So in neglecting, right? In neglecting is in the current stage it's in now is actually being referred to the students. So is that correct? Are we saying that the students are neglecting? And neglecting to provide academic challenges, right? Are the students neglecting to provide academic challenges, or are the teachers neglecting to provide academic challenges? It's the teachers. So if that's the case, then we can't use in neglecting. So that takes A, C, and A, D, and E off the table. We can follow up on this and talk more about this. Definitely after you watch the video on modifiers. And when you watch the video on modifiers, you'll be able to connect how commas are used to set off modifiers, and they should be modifying the word right next to it. Okay. All right. So with that being said, you all, we're at the 9 o'clock mark. So I'm gonna give you all 5 minutes of a break. Ready, begin. All right, we're gonna come back in another minute. All right, let's roll. Okay. So modifiers, adjectives, adverbs, or descriptive phrases, not necessary to grammar of a sentence, right? And what I think reviewing Magoosh's lessons is like really good for these type of sentences. Magoosh does a really great job when it comes to verbal. I think Magoosh does the best job among all test prep providers when it comes to verbal. I found a lot of success when I used Magoosh verbal because it Mike really breaks down the key aspects of the exam. All right, parallelism, right? List in items and lists / comparison have to match grammatically and logically. These are like sets of ways that parallelism typically shows up, but don't get so caught up in the way it's set up versus like the logic behind it, right? So whatever the word X is, it has to be logically connected to Y. So you couldn't see something like this. Not only blue, but moon. Right? It's not logic sense, right? It's not logical sense, but you could see not only the sun, but the moon. Right? So logic sense is that they're two, items. The moon is a rock versus the sun being a star. They're two, outer space objects that have a level of connection to them, right? Again, it has to have some level of connection to be in parallelism. All right, so we're going to start doing a few more problems because I want to make sure you get some practice in together today and we can explain it. All right. So new problem up. Give you all about a minute and a half to check this one out. Ready, set, go. All right, let's jump back in. Okay. So this sentence, right, is one where, again, you can kind of focus in on the answer choices without having to, I would say, focus on the prompt for context, right? So in contrast to the high value the Hopi Native Americans placed on retaining their ancestral lands, Nez Perce Native Americans left their lands and fled over 100 miles, fighting the U.S. Army several times along the way in an unsuccessful bid for freedom. Okay, so is there anything that jumps out to you from reading this answer choice, like reading this prompt? Is there anything that jumps out to you? What is being compared? The native tribes, the two tribes, right? And so what's being compared is the two tribes. So we must put them in what? Parallelism, right? We must put them in parallel. So in contrast to X, right? Now let's read this, right? So our X is our X the native tribes here, though? Is our X the native tribes here? What is the X here? The X is what? The high value, right? So can we compare the high value that one native tribe put on land to the other native tribe as a group of people? No, you can't. You can't put a feeling, you can't compare a feeling to a person, right? So that eliminates A, B, and so that eliminates A and B, right? So what about C, the ancestral lands, right? What is this comparing? This is not a feeling. What is this? This is actually comparing the what? The land versus the tribe. So incorrect as well. Okay. So now we're down to D and E. Before we go forward, are we identifying the split? Have we identified the split here? The split is what? Lands and feelings to people versus tribe to tribe. Are we clear on that? Yeah, lands versus tribe, right? That's the split here, right? So we need to make sure that we're comparing tribe to tribe. So we need to eliminate answer choices A, B, and C. Okay, great. So now we have answer choices A, B, and C out the way, right? Let's talk about D. Okay. It says, in contrast, to the Hopi Native Americans, great, placing the high value on retaining their ancestral lands. All right. So what are we doing here? What is this setup here? This setup gives us a red flag because this placing the high values on ancestral lands is not in comparison to the Nez Perce Native American tribe, right? That's too much that you're trying to plug in to the one statement there. So answer choice D is eliminated. If you look at E, E does this in a very sophisticated way. It says the Hopi Native Americans, comma, who place high value on retaining their ancestral lands, comma, right? There's a comma there. There's a comma right before Nez Perce Native Americans, right? You see how like it puts it both in parallel. So we have one Native American group, comma, non-essential, right? If it's two commas, then we could kind of cross this out, right? Non-essential. And then it connects us to what? The next Native American land. Native American tribe. Any questions about this answer? Okay, seems like we're ready to go. All right, we're ready to go. All right, next question. Ready, set, go. Okay, we are back. Many answers have come over. Let's check them out. All right. Push forward. Okay. The Book of Kells, an illumination of the four Gospels produced in 8th century Ireland, a demonstration of what many consider the pinnacle of Celtic knotwork art, knotwork art, and incorporating such foreign pigments like indigo from India and lazu from Afghanistan. And not as familiar with that word in that meeting, but that's part of the GMAT, right? So there's going to be aspects of the GMAT that you're just really not familiar with, but knowing the meaning behind the pigments or knowing what they are does not stop you from answering the question correctly. Does that make sense? The fact that like not familiar with this at all, right? This is something I'm not familiar with. Don't know much about indigo pigments and dyes and other, substances alike, but that doesn't stop me from properly answering the question. All right, so let's look at A. What stands out? The Book of Kells. What is it doing? What is the Book of Kells doing? Now, that was the reason why I asked that question. The Book of Kells, a demonstration. Is that a verb? Did it demonstrate? Right? In statement A, is there a verb in statement A? Is there something that the Book of Kells is doing? In statement A. Answer choice A. Answer choice A. Is there something that the Book of Kells is doing? No, there's no verb in the Book of Kells in statement in answer choice A. So answer choice A is incorrect. You need a verb. A verb is a must. Now, they make the split here. What's the split? Demonstration versus demonstrated. 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 Okay? So what's the split? Demonstration versus demonstrated, all right? You get these answer choices here. The most powerful word I would say in the sentence correction every time in the GMAT is and. When you see and, you must make sure that whatever is prior to or following that is in parallel with the concept being connected. So demonstrated and incorporation. What do you all think about that? Are these two in parallel? Demonstration and incorporation. I mean, demonstrated and incorporation. No, not in parallel. Get rid of B. C, demonstrated and incorporating. What about that? Parallel? Nope, not parallel. D, demonstrated and the incorporation of. What do you think about that? Nope. All right. Answer is E. But we're going to read E just for the case. Demonstrated and incorporated. What do you all think about that? Demonstrated and incorporated. Are those two verbs in parallel? Perfect parallelism, right? Same tense, everything. Perfect, done. Answer is E. All right, we're gonna hold the questions because we're about 30 minutes away from ending the class. And I do want us to finish the rest of these examples. Let's move forward. Does the timeline of the underlying portion work in context? This is the tense part. You got to make sure verb tense connects and it makes sense, right? Look for the time of words, after, before, during, etc. Tense may or may not match. Think about sequences of events, right? Think about the first question we answered, the word once, right? Once gave us a perspective of like where things fit, right, in the process. So once is one. Okay. Think about past, perfect, present, perfect, future, perfect. I'm not going to touch on these right here. These are concepts that are better, way better explained on the Magoosh product, right? I think we do a great job of explaining the identification of past perfect, present perfect, and future perfect, right? The idea of has, had, and so forth. I think we do a great job of that. When you go over the video, it will really stick with you there. Keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. A lot like to pick the boring answer in reading comprehension, right? Do I need a fancy tense? No, you don't. Do I really need this comma? Maybe, maybe not. Is it something that I need to have in this sentence? Does my answer need to be this long? Sometimes you want something that is to the point. All right, next question is up. Minute and a half, ready, set, go. All right, we're back. Okay, we got everything in. Overwhelming. Glad to say a lot of the answers popped up. So in this one, I see a lot of answers that came over. A lot of you hit on the answer the right way. Tell me your thoughts. What were some of the things you took into consideration for this answer choice? What did you take into consideration? Yes. Yeah, I like that. Carry is in the past tense, right? No longer, right? So I guess it's like this planet is just in the air somewhere, right? It's just not there anymore. All right. So, but the collision with Neptune is possible because Pluto also has a highly inclined orbit. Now, the thing that you also want to take into account, right? Remember what we said about that and which, right? So which means it's non-essential, which means you would need commas that set it off. So really it's coming down to, you know, that carries, that has been carrying, that it's having carried. What's wrong with that has been carrying? That's like more of like it that it has been carrying it, that but it's changing. Something's about to change. Yes, which always has to have a comma. I wouldn't say that is incorrect, but I would say it's like 90% incorrect. I wouldn't. I don't think that that's the rule. The rule is not if it doesn't have a comma, it's no good. But I would say it's almost 90% correct. If it 90% incorrect if it doesn't have a comma. So that's it. So this is wrong. Having carried, right? That's like past tense, right? So having carried, right? So like having done it before. So that's past tense. So that carries, right? Short, sweet, and simple. That carries. Love it. We'll move forward. Great to see a lot of people get that one right. All right, next answer is up. Let's go. All right. This is another problem. We got a nice mix here, right? We got C and D tied at 44%, and then we have someone selected B. All right, so let's work on this one together. Okay, so let's look at the split. What is the split we have here? What is the split? Drop it in the chat. What is the split we have here? Had versus was. Okay, let's look at this sentence, right? China was united under the Qin and Han was united under the Qin and Han before Buddhism would have been introduced. United. All right, let's think about that, right? Is it China was united, or it's more of like a past tense, right? Like this had happened, but this, right? So China was or had, it's actually had, right? So it had been united under this, but this thing has occurred or this thing has changed. All right. So we want to eliminate was. So was is off the table. So we're not down to B and C. Do you all notice how when you find a split, and if you can make a decision on that split early enough, you can eliminate multiple answer choices? Now, these questions right here are in the medium to hard level. When you go higher up in the exam to like extremely hard questions, typically the split doesn't eliminate as much. Maybe you could like eliminate one answer choice or possibly two. But as you go higher up, the split doesn't give you as much bang for your buck. But remember, we said that we're going to set a solid floor for our score. And so I think the splits is like perfect for where we are today. All right. So we're choosing between B and C. Any other splits that you all are seeing? Okay. It was united. Okay. Are you seeing anything? Yeah. Right. So we have Buddhism. So everything's the same. Had been united under the Qin and Han before Buddhism had been introduced or was introduced. What are you all thinking from between B and C? Yeah. Right. Before it was introduced. Right. Yeah, it does say it twice. I don't necessarily think that like matters on this one, but I get your point. They have said it twice. And it was united. Yes, right. That's probably more of the adjustment here, but it's more information, just more things to think about, right? So the and is key, right? Because it creates that what? What does that create? What does and create? Starts with a P. Parallelism. Exactly. And so what is it referring to? China, right? China is an it. Though it has millions of people, it isn't it, right? So you need to have those in parallelism. And so that creates the parallel, right? So China, right? It jumps over all of these words. So what happens is you have all of these words and it could get real confusing, but China was China was united under the Qin, right? And it was united again 4 centuries later, right? So China was united and China was united. I don't get more parallel than that, right? Like it gets no more parallel than that, right? Your answer choice is C. C is the right answer. Something to think about. Agreement, right? Does the number of all the words match, right? Noun, verb, agreement, right? Does the number of all the words match? This is something to think about, right? Noun, verb agreement, noun, pronoun agreement. Tips, clues, right? The S is disappearing between answer choices, often paired with a tense issue. Be careful to match with the right noun, okay? Make sure the nouns are matching right and correctly. All right, next answer choice is up. Ready, set, go. All right, a little tricky. Gave you all a little bit more time. Right, I gave you all a little bit more time on this one. A little bit over 2 minutes. But it's great to see that you all, seems like you all have really put the time in to really select a consensus favorite. All right, let's talk about it. Okay, so let's read the sentence. China currently operates the world's second largest economy, and they have the fastest growth rate compared to that of the world's major economies. What's the biggest red flag that should pop up on you in your head right now? They versus it. All right. And what are we selecting? Hold on, let's circle it. You know, let's give respect to the splits. They, it, and it. What is our selection here? We're talking about China. There's billions of people there. There's billions of people in China. Why is it? Because it's a collective noun. It's one country, right? The army is a it. The navy is a it. The Giants, right? Like, you know, the NBA is a it, right? I'll come back to that in a second. Not a problem. So A, B, and C are gone, right? fastest growth rate among compared to the world's other economy. Another thing that you need to have here, right? Another thing that you need to have here. So it needs to be, so we're comparing growth rates, right? So we're comparing the growth rate. So the growth rate, right? When it comes to growth rate, you need this that of, okay? Why do you need that of? Because you need to compare the growth rates of China and the other economies, not the growth rate of China to the world's economies. Does that make sense that you need the that of? All right, you need the that of. Okay, so B doesn't have it. You could do among, right? You could do among. Other actually works, so I take that back. So it's not a double on B, right? So you can have other. You can have among. You can have among, right? And you can have other here, right? So only A is the one that we're missing, right? And so what you want to make sure though is that the difference between, let me clear this out. The difference between D and E, so, well, because C says among, you could use among because China is among, it is part of the world economies, but the among creates like a separation. So among is fine. Among is totally fine. Yeah. So among is totally fine, right? And so what separates D and E, because they do create that separation with it, is that compared to the world's other economy, right? This is kind of becomes a little redundant, whereas like the among part really like makes it more concise. And it's clear that it's the fastest growth rate among the world's major economies. D is correct. E is not wrong, but but compared to the world's other economies is incorrect. All right, major economies is correct. D is the answer here. This is a tricky one. This is a tricky one. And my suggestion here is that you take some time to like practice these type of problems and move through it. So if I find a link to this problem, I'll share it with you all. If I find the link to it, I'll share it with you. We got 3 questions left. Let's put some time in. We got 3 questions left. All right. Okay, meaning, clarity, ambiguous pronouns, redundancies. Watch out for it all. When in doubt, pick the shortest and simplest answer. Not something that you should do every time, but it does help out to pick the shortest, most concise answer to get your point across. All right, here we go. 2 minutes, ready, set, go. All right, we're back. So I tend not to share the poll percentages because that's more of a comparison of each other, and I really don't want to create that space where you all are comparing each other. But as long as you keep, your answer choices with you, then you'll know if you got it right or wrong, right? So then that'll probably help you out a little bit more. Um, okay. So I would say perennially, the world's leader in tea production, China's fascination in tea has deep historical roots, as exemplified with the tea ceremony, which has analogous uh, angles in Japan and Korea, right? So the issue with A is what? What do you all see as the issue with A? This China's apostrophe says that it's a fascination, right? Yeah, it's modifying the wrong thing, right? So it's modifying the wrong aspect of the statement. The world's leader is not the fascination, right? So that's incorrect. B sets it up correctly. It says China, right? And its apostrophe, right? Ownership, singular, as exemplified by blank. C, fascinating with fascinating with deep historical roots is not the same as fascination. So the meaning changes. So C is incorrect. All right. What about D? D is correct in the beginning, but where the issue is as an example of. The tea ceremony is not an example, is exemplified by the tea ceremony. So C is incorrect. And let's look at D is incorrect. Let's look at E. E is incorrect because of the and there. So China and their fascination. China is singular, right? So it wouldn't be there, it would be it or its. That's what China would be. So C is incorrect. Answer choice is B. Again, a really good problem. Tricky, but a good problem. All right, let's try it. Let's go. 2 minutes on the clock. Ready, set, go. All right. Okay, great to see everybody got this one right. Yeah, everyone got this one right. This is one of those sentences where it looks more challenging than what it really is. Can you all share with me what are you all seeing that made it easier for you to narrow it down to C? Everyone that answered got C right. He at the end, huh? All right. So symphony is a shorter and denser work than the Seventh Symphony. And when Cerny asked why it was less popular than Seventh, Beethoven replied, there you go. Right. And so the issue is with the split that we have here, right? Between the answer choices. We'll go through it quickly. So symphony, A shorter. Here we don't have Beethoven 8th Symphony and when, right? No verb. Okay. Right? Symphony is shorter and denser work than Seventh Symphony is. And when Cerny asked a question about why it was less popular than the Seventh, that is the issue right there. Like that and B misses it, right? Where it's like it's unholy at like than the Seventh. Like this is like, why is it less popular than the Seventh? Like that's terrible, right? And C is your best choice because it's the most concise and it connects. Asking why it was less popular than, that's terrible again. Would you ever write and when Cerny asking why it was less popular? No, you would never write that like that way. Right? And then E, the problem with E is that there is no verb as well. No verb. All right, answer is C. Great work. Okay, we are nearing time. So want to make sure you all get to your homework, right? So we're gonna just jump to the key takeaways. So we have one question that we did not cover, but we'll go over that question and in the study session on Saturday. So instead of like that'll be our first question we'll go over on Saturday. Just remind me, okay? All right. Okay, sentence correction is not equal to critical reasoning or reading comp. Identify splits, process of elimination, make it almost like math. Rules are better than your error. When in doubt, consider the meaning and simplicity is key. All right, here's your homework to end out the night. Okay. Here's your lesson work that's coming up. Again, great videos on Magoosh. I think that they're the best in the business. I'm not saying it just because I work here. I think when I used Magoosh for my study, my GMAT study, it was like second to none. All right. I'm going to leave this up here. If you have any questions, let me know. But until then, have a great rest of your night or your morning or your day. How long did I study with Magoosh? I studied with Magoosh seriously, like the serious time of studying, not the play time that I was doing. I would say about 8 to 12 months. I'd say about a year and some change when I was serious and buckling down. But I've seen people do it faster. I was working a full-time job at the time. I was like not studying. Yeah. So I would say about a year altogether. All right. So with that being said, yeah, that being said, y'all have a good night. It's tough to do a work, but I would say the number one thing was like, I didn't reach out to Magoosh for help. So that's the thing with GMAT. If you need help, just reach out and we'll help you. Typically, you just need like someone to help explain like a part of the study process. Once they explain it to you, like, and it unblocks you, you typically don't need any much help after that. Most likely, you know, you take it from there. All right. With that said, I think it's all right. Yeah, have a good one. Okay. We are about 5 minutes over. I'll stay on for a few more minutes if you have any questions. As I see people leave, I'll leave too. All right. Yeah, have a good evening or good morning or good day. And take care. Bye.